This is your reality check.
Hi everyone, and welcome to The Reality Check, the Canadian show that explores a wide range of controversies and curiosities using science and critical thinking. I am your host, Darren McKee, and with me, as usual, is Adam Gardner.
What's up, cuboids?
We have a great show for you today, listeners. Adam is going to talk about whether alien life exists around an exoplanet.
Yeah, that's right.
But first, I'm going to talk to you about whether 100 men could beat one gorilla in a fight.
Excellent.
Because this was a popular topic 2 weeks ago, I thought it great to cover it now.
And the show will be out in another 2 weeks.
Amazing, exactly. Such are the complications of not doing a daily show. Although violent at its core, the topic is a kind of fun, silly one. And besides, not every segment I do can be about the risks of artificial intelligence.
Mm-hmm. What about an AI gorilla?
Maybe a future segment.
Yeah.
And it should go without saying that I don't think people should be fighting gorillas, as they are generally peaceful creatures and our primate cousins, and many are endangered. Mm-hmm. Like many internet events, this just seemed to come about and then be all over various social media sites. Mm-hmm. But apparently, the question's first known appearance, at least recorded on the internet, was on the subreddit r/who would win in a 2020 post by You Probably Cached. The question went viral on TikTok in 2022, and it resurfaced in April 2025, approximately after YouTube personality Mr. Beast posted a joke tweet asking for 100 male volunteers to take on the hypothetical challenge of fighting a gorilla. This got 17 million views, and it was picked up and then spread around.
Very funny.
So you've likely heard the chatter or seen the memes or read some articles. 100 men or one gorilla. Who do you think would win? You can answer it to yourself. Adam, do you have a short answer?
I believe the 100 men would win.
Okay, to be explored later. My answer is, without further information, one cannot provide a reasonable prediction. Also to be elaborated further.
Okay.
But this is mainly because the details of this thought experiment matter. Yes, a fun debate topic becomes a pedantic definitional topic. You're welcome. That's what I bring to the table.
Excellent.
Let's explore some basic facts and then discuss possible fight scenarios.
Oh, yeah.
First, let's get some gorilla basics in terms of stats. Mm-hmm. From Wikipedia, gorillas are the largest living primates. That's what it says. I think they mean non-human primates, but we'll just say what it says.
They're larger than us.
Well, that's an interesting...
It depends. Is there more variance in the human...
height versus weight versus other things. Yeah,
okay.
Reaching heights between 1.25 and 1.8 meters.
Oh, no, very tall.
That's 4'1" and 5'11" for our, regular listeners probably. And weighs between 100 and 270 kilograms. 220 to 600 pounds.
Oh, yeah. That's
there you go.
Significant.
And then the arm span of up to 2.6 meters or 8 feet 6 inches.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah, that's impressive.
Depending on the species and the sex. Yeah. So you could imagine they are larger in many ways, but not necessarily height.
No,
compared
but
to
it
humans.
Sounds like they're still tanks. You know?
Oh, yeah, sure enough. Mm-hmm. They tend to live in troops, with the leader being called a silverback. The eastern gorilla is distinguished from the western by darker fur color and some other minor morphological differences. Gorillas tend to live about 35 to 40 years in the wild. And yes, all gorillas used to have the same scientific classification, but now has split between eastern and western and even other further subdivisions. So the western gorilla has the very creative scientific name of gorilla, gorilla, gorilla.
Yeah, this is like Homo sapiens sapiens.
There you go.
Action. Yeah.
Whenever the question of 100 men versus one gorilla was mentioned, it was always assumed that it was an adult male gorilla, no females or juveniles, and often a male silverback. And this makes sense, because 100 men fighting one female or a child doesn't work well. People don't want to have that thought experiment.
Well, it has to be equivalent. If it's going to be a female gorilla, it should be female humans. If it's going to be a child gorilla, it should be children humans.
Well, but if a female was 100 kilograms, a lot of human females don't weigh 100 kilograms.
No, they don't. So you gotta be equivalent.
Well, but it's not equivalent.
But it's gonna vary because your sexual dimorphism will be different between species.
It's gonna be a long segment, listeners.
Yes,
mm-hmm. Okay, so what about male gorilla? What are some fight relevant stats? So first, raw strength. A silverback gorilla is estimated to be 4 to 10 times stronger than an average human. They can lift up to, we'll say, 1,800 pounds, about 800 kilograms without any training.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. Imagine they did CrossFit, Adam.
Oh, amazing. You flip that tire with one hand.
Yeah, exactly. Their grip strength is 6 times stronger than a human's, allowing them to crush objects with ease. As for speed and agility, they can sprint at speeds of up to 25 miles an hour. That's about 40K. Despite their bulk, they're highly agile capable of climbing trees and maneuvering through dense forests.
Interesting. Yeah.
Bite force. It's around 1,300 psi, which is stronger than a lion's and can crush bones. And they can tear through vegetation and obviously defend themselves effectively with it.
They are
Herbivorous.
And they're still that strong. Just a defense, not an offense.
You got to eat through a tree sometimes.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, well, actually, that's clearly related probably to combat versus just needing to chew.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, for combat, endurance, and durability. So they have thick skin and dense muscle mass, making them highly resistant to blunt force trauma. Their skeletal structure is reinforced, particularly around the skull, protecting them from serious injury. It's like someone designed a fighting weapon, right?
It's designed to fight 100 humans.
However, they are not built for prolonged endurance fights.
Oh.
Meaning they may tire faster than humans in a long battle.
Oh, so we'll do 10 at a time. Just keep going.
Fighting instincts and strategy. They're not naturally aggressive, but they will fight fiercely when threatened. They use chest-beating, roaring, and charging to intimidate before engaging in actual physical combat. Like a lot of things in the wild, it's making a show versus sacrificing actual biological health. And their long arms give them extended reach, allowing them to strike before an opponent gets
that's
close.
a big advantage.
They rarely fight to kill. Instead, they aim to dominate and drive away threats. So that's the main stats for that. So given these stats, a gorilla easily beats most humans with strength, reach, biting, speed.
Oh, yeah, one-on-one, I think there's no contest.
But they aren't naturally aggressive, and they don't have a lot of stamina. I think these are very relevant.
Are you allowed, as the 100 humans, to make friendship arrangements with the gorilla? Calm them down? Like, is it
Them? Is there a plural?
with the gorilla, yeah.
We'll get into some of this stuff. Okay,
Yeah.
so what about the men? Are they average U.S. men, of which 40% are obese?
Oh, boy.
Are they elderly? Can the men use tools or weapons? I think no, because that would be a completely different type of fight.
No, he's got a gun. Forget it.
Well, no,
It's
but
Harambe.
even other things. But if you agree on no tools, as you just seem to there, that provides a lot of constraints because so many things could be used as tools. For example, if you were fighting in a jungle, well,
pick up a stick for sure.
or even use different branches to build weapons, or maybe there's rocks and there's other types of things,
Sand
right?
in the eyes.
Right. Or even you could maybe hide in the tree. Now, gorillas are good in the trees, probably better than people, but that could be a possibility. Now, in a space of empty vegetation, does dirt you can use to blind a gorilla, does that count as a tool, as a weapon? Kind of. What about clothing? No belts, of course, but are you allowed shoes? Well,
The men would all be distracted by a bunch of Johns flopping around.
well, wait.
with the gorilla.
So could pants be taken off and formed to make makeshift restraints or nets? And then, do you have then men fighting naked?
Yeah.
So again, these are things that are often unspecified, and that's why I try to ruin things. Do all the men want to be there? So this is the psychological factor.
boy.
And I think this is very important. Now, the gorilla, you could imagine, it's passive, it's minding its own business, but these men supposedly have to beat it in a fight. How motivated are these men really? Most men don't want to kill a gorilla, right? They just don't. Most people don't, in general. So, by the way, you have to kill this gorilla. Like, what? Why? Why would I do that? Like,
He
it doesn't
want to kill me. I don't
No,
want to kill him.
exactly.
Let's just be friends.
I know. It's like, oh, well, he was talking badly about your family. Like, it doesn't,
He said you could beat you at Mario Kart.
There you go. That's funny. He stole the princess. Oh, he stole Peach. So I think, again, you can play around with these things, but you could imagine if a man is trying to kill a gorilla, that's going to be, they don't want to have to do that, right?
Yeah.
And they don't have the skill to choke one out.
No.
Right. So I don't want to kill it. I'll just passively subdue it. Yeah, right. Also a gorilla's neck. So the motivation aspect is critical because I think many of these 100 men would easily die, under any circumstances, pretty much. Are some of the men allowed to use some of the other men as shields or to smother their gorilla with men? Because again, if there are, no casting aspersions, but if there happen to be obese men, they could be used as shields and type. So it's absolutely horribly brutal, but harder for a gorilla to bite you if its mouth is occupied biting someone else, right?
Oh yeah.
Pick up a smaller man and just use him as a little shield. Can we reasonably expect the men to coordinate? Well, have you met 100 men? What's at stake? How organized are they? How many would actually listen? If there's 100, do they all respect one leader?
So we can joke about that, but coordination is the strength of the human species.
It is. So there has to be, again, something has to be at stake here.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be like, if you don't do this, your family will be murdered, something ridiculous, right? So everyone might agree on the strategy to overwhelm the gorilla, right? While accepting some losses.
Yeah.
understanding that the men going first are likely to die or be seriously injured. But that's not the same as agreeing who's going to go die and who's going to be seriously injured.
Yeah, of course.
And of course, there's the, everyone's got a plan until you get punched in the face. So like everyone's got a plan until a gorilla bites someone's head or rips its face off or bites through someone's arm and you just see it. And then suddenly you're confronted with the reality of sheer terror, I assume.
I like my face. I like to keep it.
It's the only face I got, but it's mine. It's my face. So I think, yes, if you start thinking through these things, you're like, all right, you really have to start specifying. I don't know, the men are highly motivated and they're going to coordinate and all these other things. Or you don't, but you have to then say if X, then Y, if so on and so on.
Mm-hmm.
Various experts have weighed in on the general case. First, we have Tara Stoinski, president of the Deanne Fossey Gorilla Fund. She said that humans could coordinate, taking turns to attack and wear the gorilla out. Primatologist Michelle Rodriguez thought that the gorilla would try to run away because they wouldn't like the odds of success. And then I'll add, to make it more explicit, 100 men, if they were actually coordinated, all yelling, would be very intimidating.
So given that even though we don't weigh as much as a gorilla, but we are taller, would we perhaps be able to like get really tall and get in their face and intimidate them?
I think so.
Even if we don't have an advantage?
I think one human, maybe not.
Yeah.
Right. And we're not, Shaq has even told a story. Like Shaq's a different case, right? Because he's so large. But when he was at a zoo, these other gorillas were eyeing him.
Oh, wow.
and seeing him as like...
Here's the alpha
Yeah,
guy.
kind of.
Oh, that is very...
Yeah, or just thinking maybe they couldn't, but they saw him as a threat in a way they don't think they'd see me or you as a threat.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's fair. Yep. Ron McGill, communications director of Zoo Miami, believed that the human attackers could work together and smother or constrain the gorilla, but they would accept many losses. Primatologist Kat Hobater argued that if the men had to attack one at a time, they wouldn't stand a chance.
Yeah, that's fair. You don't attack one at a time. We're not ninjas from a movie.
I don't. So I'll say personally, I initially thought that the gorilla would win because most men aren't capable fighters, and it would be hard for men to coordinate with people you just met, right? If you just met them, and the gorilla moves so fast, and he's such a powerful creature, you could imagine even if they sort of circle the gorilla, it'd just pick up one person, like swing it around, and hit all the other people. But I didn't realize gorillas had limited stamina and might be intimidated. That said, I think a gorilla would be highly motivated once attacked and would fight until it couldn't, so there'd be heavy human losses. But if the humans are willing to go until last man standing, it's possible someone could just sort of somewhat smother a really exhausted gorilla. Adam, what do you think?
The stamina piece is very important. And when it comes to running, humans are unique as bipeds. Right? We stand upright, so our gait does not constrain the speed at which we breathe, right? This is why you kind of have like the trot and the canter and all this when you talk about horses. So an animal changes its rate of running, and it influences the way it breathes and stuff like that. So humans that's why we're such good hunters. That's why we're so good at prolonged hunts that can last hours, even maybe days. And then you're tiring out your prey. Your prey gets tired, you kill it.
But that's
so
usually...
I'm thinking you could incorporate something like that in your strategy, and you're running around in circles. And yes, he's going to get a bunch of you, but eventually he's going to get tired, if not just from his kind of running strategy, but just generally from stamina. And if there's 100, you can have some taking a nap and waiting, like while some of them are just chasing around.
So this is useful. So I think it's interesting because that I often think applies mainly to quadrupeds, not quite gorillas. And they might
I'm not
just
sure where they are in the
and
spectrum.
they might just if he just goes to the trees, the whole thing doesn't work as well because now humans climbing a tree is going to be so ineffective, and the gorilla could easily just swat them down. But to your point, it really goes to what's the game board, right?
Oh yeah, is it a Hunger Games style? Is it a Coliseum thing?
Is it somehow everyone magically appears in a cube, right? An octagon. If you're imagining there's enough room that they can run around a lot, that's a different type of environment.
Yeah. Well, even in a smaller space, you can run around a bit.
Oh,
right?
sure.
I'm just going back and forth, and he's got to go from one side to another.
Yes.
Eventually, there'll just be bodies in the way. But
yeah, that's true. I think sort of alluded to, but if this happened in any actual way, even though it's fantastical, we're assuming that the men know what they're there to do, but the gorilla might not. Not really.
Yeah, you can convince a human to do it through reason. You can't really convince the...
Right, or the gorilla at the stakes. By the way, they're going to keep going until every one of them's dead. Pace yourself. You can't... I don't think you have that conversation. Yeah. So, obviously, this is a silly but somewhat entertaining internet debate, for sure. Yeah. And I had wished there were more details so everyone has the same understanding of the setup. Because often when people say, I think this versus that, oh wait, you had different parameters in mind. Yep. Turns out, the original Reddit poster provided some. So this is the post from 5 years ago. 100 men versus one silverback gorilla. Already specified in the title.
He's like the alpha. He's the guy. Okay.
He's the alpha presenter. Now, This is a quote. Now, this question has been posed many times, so obviously it's already...
I guess on this subreddit, they go through
I assume so. I guess it's something to do in your spare time now. Continuing the quote. With many different numbers of men, but let's get some fresh perspective. Men's stats. Your average run-of-the-mill dude who drinks at least 130 rack weekly, preferably Bud Light. So this person's having 3 beers a day, at least 4, right? Yeah. 4.5, a little bit. The tallest one is 6'5". The smallest is 5'8".
Okay.
Ranging from 145 to 260 pounds. So this guy's clearly specifying men's stats.
5'8's pretty tall considering your top end is 6'5". Like, so you're above average.
Right. Well, considering your top end gorilla is 5'11", right? Yeah. So now we almost have like the shortest man is almost as tall.
Oh, yeah.
No one trained in any fighting or anything.
Oh.
Manual labor or overseeing manual labor is all these guys know. No weapons.
So so like guys working construction, so they'll be fit.
So here, and this is still continuing with the quote, gorilla, he's ticked off. The manager told him all these 100 dudes were responsible for killing Harambe. Yeah, this is a delight. I knew this would delight Adam. I knew. And just brackets, R.I.P. It's been a while since I've typed that name. Before the fight, the gorilla can be seen running back and forth, pounding its chest, yelling, I don't know what, but I can tell it's vulgar. It's the gorilla's taunting the men in gorilla.
Well,
I don't know what the language is.
These men are going to be peeing themselves.
Right. So there's actually 3 different rounds that are presented. Round 1, location, gorilla exhibit. Men can only send 2 at a time at the gorilla.
Oh, 2 at a time.
Wait, ends by knockout or death. So why don't we do that one first?
We're testing his stamina then big time.
Yes. It's also the gorilla exhibit, which he would know, and the men wouldn't.
But I feel like even a tired gorilla can kill 2 fresh humans.
I think so. I think so. Yeah, I also think, again, you start to think of, the demoralizing aspect once you've watched 10 to 30 sets of 2 men all get brutally murdered.
He's just on a row of, like, smashing heads together. Seriously. Just like boom.
No, boom. I don't know if, again, like, maybe though that 6'5", 260 guy, he gets paired with the 6'4", 240 guy, and they get, I don't know, 1 hit in, but I don't see it. So that one I would probably give to the gorilla, right?
I would too.
Yes. Round 2, location, construction site. I'm like, I really wanted to work in more of like Donkey Kong, but anyway.
This is like Smash Brothers items on.
Neither the gorilla or the men are allowed to use beams or other tools as weapons.
Okay.
It still seems a bit suspicious.
Allowed? Is the gorilla going to follow the rules? You need to not have beams around if you want him to follow the rules.
Well, again, like what kind of construction site doesn't have anything constructed or what? Like I'm trying to picture like, is there not anything around that you could use as a weapon? Send however many you want at a time though. So men can do whatever they want.
Yeah.
Ends in knockout or death. I think Adam and I both probably say this goes to the men if they're willing to coordinate, sustain losses, and exhaust the gorilla.
And even like, it's silly, but just like, I feel like the humans would be able to lure the gorilla in such a way and like just push him over and like have him fall from a great height or something like that.
Okay, so you're imagining, gorilla, you could imagine easily climbing up all these beams.
Sure, but at one point you overpower him and he falls. But
then men slowly climbing up the beams.
Well, a bunch of people can die. They got 100.
No. I'm just, again, but like, I know, I guess, again, motivated to, look, you're going to fight the gorilla, maybe die, versus you're just going to fall off the beam with the gorilla, right?
Well, These them run up one side and some run up the other side, and while he's killing them on one side, they get higher up the other side.
Maybe.
He goes after him, they knock him down.
I don't know what construction site this is. But again, if the men are somehow highly motivated and willing to accept heavy losses, I think it would go to the men. But
the second...
but it would it very much depend on the construction site.
Yeah. In... the second New Planet of the Apes film, there's like a whole thing that's like a construction site of an old building, and the apes are like swinging around, and they're really having good. There's more than one ape. The human to ape ratio is pretty good, and the humans get very.
Well, you could imagine like these men who are fit, they work with their hands and so on. It's not like they are an advanced fighting gymnast, which is what the gorilla would be, right? Yes. So it's very easy for the gorilla, like, I'll just keep knocking you off. Yeah. Like, oh, you knocked me down, I just held on with my feet, and then I swung around and knocked more of you off.
Yeah, it's like swatting rats or something. Eventually, are the rats going to overwhelm you? I don't know.
Okay, round 3. Location, that floating ring you would play boxing on in Monkey Ball. I don't know what this means.
Is that like Super Monkey Ball?
I guess so.
This is kind of like a theoretical like Super Smash Brothers floating platform. Okay. Nothing in, nothing out.
Okay, you could easily
throw them off of it.
Does that mean you could easily fall off the edge?
I think so. Okay. I haven't played Super Monkey Ball.
All right,
but
we're not entirely sure here. Okay, this will be performed in 10 waves of 10 men. The gorilla will be positioned in the middle, while the 10 try to get him off the ring in a Royal Rumble of sorts.
Yeah, it sounds like it's like a Tron thing. You can push him off. Yeah.
Ends only by getting the opponent off the ring. So I guess it's whether the gorilla fully understands that if it gets off the ring, it loses. Almost like getting pushed out of the ring of sumo, right?
Sure.
Because it could be the gorilla just doesn't know or doesn't care. Or like, is it really so high up in the air, like be infinite death or whatever it is? I don't know.
Like it could only really learn that lesson by falling and dying, which it isn't, right? Whereas a human can comprehend it, right?
So I think, again, 10 sets of 10. It meant if the men are coordinated and they spawn in a certain way, they could all push the gorilla off the side.
Yeah, I think there's a certain like luring and then pushing that they could do, and I think 10 men could do it. And if not the first 10 men, I think the 10th group of 10 men, because he'll be pretty tired.
Yeah,
that's my.
This is such a ridiculous segment. So all I have to say is, even this, which is far more specificity than the general thing that was going on the internet, still doesn't have enough specificity. Not quite in terms of what's there. I just thought it'd be interesting to talk about because, again, wanted to have a lighter segment, so to speak. And I was curious, listeners, if you already had an opinion before I presented this topic, if you have a different opinion now, if you changed your mind at all. Adam, did you change anything?
I don't think I fundamentally changed my opinion because I assumed that the humans would win, but I think I have a better idea of that feasibility, and I don't think it's clear cut. We can say it's uncertain. I think realistically, if we actually tried it, we might find that there is one clear advantage.
Yes, correct.
Even in many permutations, it'd be like, oh, actually, just because there's sheer numbers, the humans overwhelm, or just because this gorilla is so strong.
Right. Now, in this original setup, all these men, like these are stronger and taller and heavier than average men. Well, not necessarily heavier, but like heavier in a muscular way, we'll assume.
Yeah, they're fairly impressive humans. Mm-hmm. I also want to say, like, there's a lot of people in this world, and some of them are not very ethical. I hope no one ever tries this.
Oh yeah, I know.
Yes, it would be interesting and informative, but like, yes, it would be this terrible suffering, and I hope people don't do it.
I agree. Well then, from one planet with an ape to other planets with potential apes. Adam, is there alien life around an exoplanet where they would film future Planet of the Apes movies?
Well, Darren, the Planet of the Apes was Earth all along, so actually there was no aliens involved in that. Actually,
aren't we all aliens?
Depends on the version we're talking about. Well, even the Mark Wahlberg version, it's still, the life still comes from Earth, even though that was a different planet. So
Mark Wahlberg, a bit of an alien, though. Hey guys, I'm just doing some ape movies.
He's just from Boston.
That's funny. Khakis.
Mark. So apes aside, did we finally find alien life? Some would have you think that we did. So here are a couple headlines around the story I'm going to talk about. From the BBC, scientists find strongest evidence yet of life on distant planet. And from New Scientist, astronomers claim strongest evidence of alien life yet. Well, this seems pretty strong. Like, these are like quotes, strongest yet. So, what color are the aliens? What do they look like? Are they friendly? The story is about planet K2-18b, which sounds a bit like a Star Wars droid, but it is not, because unlike the droids in Star Wars, these ones are in our own galaxy.
And it's real. Sorry to ruin it, listeners.
Maybe not. Much like Star Wars, it doesn't exist. K2-18b is what's called a Hycean world, or a Hycean planet. This is a planet which is covered in a habitable ocean with H2, or hydrogen-rich atmosphere. It's speculated that such a world would be a good candidate for life. The one example of a planet which has life which we know of is Earth. It is mostly covered in water, and that is where life began. Since these planets don't have land, the life evolving there would need to remain in the water, and if it ever did leave the water, it would need to, fly. It wouldn't have the intermediate of going on land to adapt to. The stories that made the rounds claim that a molecule was detected around K2-18b, which on Earth could only be produced by living organisms. So I'm not saying it's aliens, but it's aliens.
End segment.
It's over. It's the end. The lead researcher, Professor Niku Madhusudamf from Cambridge University, said the following to the BBC. This is the strongest evidence yet there is possibly life out there. I can realistically say that we can confirm this signal within 1 to 2 years. Well, this guy seems to think this is a significant discovery.
But also, a confirmation could be 2 years away. Yes. That sounds like a reasonable scientific thing to say.
It is. The planet is some 124 light years away. It's pretty far, more than 2 years. NASA's James Webb Space Telescope isn't just good at shooting beautiful pictures, it's able to analyze the chemical composition of a planet's atmosphere. How exactly can it do it from 124 light years away?
The beauty of science.
When a planet transits in front of its star, right? So basically, The planet goes between the observer, the telescope in this case, and the star. The light from the star passes through the atmosphere, and based on the wavelengths of light which go through, we can infer what the atmosphere is composed of. So, a substance, a gas, will block a specific wavelength of light. Basically, if that light is not in what we see, then we can say, okay, this substance must be there. That's the idea, rather. In this case, the substances in question are dimethyl sulfide and dimethyl disulfide. These substances exist on Earth and are produced by phytoplankton and bacteria.
And they'll be in a new Mountain Dew flavor soon enough to make Adam happy.
Oh, it sounds delicious. Would it be living? That'd be like weird. Like,
I mean,
yogurt's got bacteria in it,
I would say there's a lot of bacteria already in every liquid we consume.
Yeah, a lot of them. So the logic is, if these substances are in the atmosphere of K2-18b, it's because some similar type of life form exists in the planet's ocean to produce them. The quantities detected were thousands of times greater than those that are found on Earth, leading the researchers to speculate that the planet must be teeming with life.
Teeming.
Alien life. If true, this means, and I quote, if we confirm that there is life on K2-18b, it should basically confirm that life is very common in the galaxy. So, I would tend to agree with that statement, if everything else happens to be true. We don't know how rare life in the galaxy is, since we only have one example. If we find evidence of life elsewhere in the galaxy, and have only seriously looked for it in a few places, or a limited number of places, then it is statistically likely that life is fairly common. Likewise, if we happen to find life evolved independently somewhere else in our solar system, then life would likely be very common, or somehow we got really lucky. But the researchers aren't 100% sure.
Nor should they be.
No. They state that they are 99.7% sure.
Oh, that's pretty high.
That is very high.
Also, not 0.6 or 0.8, 99.7.
That's right. That means there's some math behind it. So what are the problems with this idea? Well, assuming that this substance has indeed been determined to exist in the atmosphere of this planet, we don't actually know with any certainty that it was produced by aliens. Just because we don't know doesn't mean it's aliens. You know, this is a standard thing. If something's not explainable, you don't say it's got to be a ghost or an alien or whatever.
I mean, we don't on this show.
No,
almost all of humanity does.
A lot of people do, yes. There's no other explanation. It's psychics. Okay. Some other explanation, which is unknown, may explain it. The other question is that other scientists question whether or not this substance even exists on this planet. Dr. Nicholas Wogan at NASA's Ames Research Center isn't even sure that the planet has an ocean. He suspects that it could be a gas giant with no surface. Phil Plait of Bad Astronomy is not convinced. While he admits the planet could have water due to its distance from the sun, he also says it could be a gas giant like Neptune. Alternatively, he says it could be a lava planet like Mustafar. Mustafar is also fake and not in our galaxy. He says we don't actually have solid evidence that Hycean worlds, so basically planets with these giant oceans, actually exist. When it comes to the method of detection, as I mentioned, you analyze the wavelengths of light which pass through the atmosphere. The wavelengths which are blocked are assumed to belong to a specific substance, but in many cases, more than one substance can block the same wavelengths of light, so we can't actually be sure what substance is in the atmosphere that is producing them.
Yeah, this whole inference/deduction is tricky business.
So, if you got really specific and it was very narrow, and, there may be instances where it's unique, but I think here that's not really the case. So back in the day when the Hubble telescope observed this same planet, K2-18b, they determined via this method that the atmosphere contained water. When the James Webb telescope was used, the researchers who are suggested to have found evidence of alien life showed that rather than water, they found evidence of methane and carbon dioxide. As for the dimethyl sulfide, the smoking gun suggesting aliens, Plait says that the detection of this wasn't that strong. They found only a hint. Further, when analyzing the light spectrum of what's blocked by the atmosphere, it isn't actually clear that this is dimethyl sulfide and dimethyl disulfide, so not only do we not know the origins of the substance if it was there, we don't even know that that substance is there. He also shows that there's been dimethyl sulfide and dimethyl disulfide found in a comet and a gas cloud in deep space, which was not the result of biological organisms. So in short, we know this substance can exist without life, so why are we suspecting that life is the cause of it? So I don't think the case is made for there being life on this planet. It's interesting research and perhaps an indicator that it's a possibility, but without more information, we can't really infer that much. And we aren't actually likely to get that much more information because the planet is that far away. But this made me wonder, what would it look like for life to be on other planets? When we talk about things like the Fermi paradox, which wonders why we haven't seen evidence of life in the universe, we need to consider what we'd expect to see. I looked at something like this back in episode 308 of the show, when I wondered how close we would need to be to detect radio waves from a planet like Earth. Turns out not far at all, so not seeing evidence of this in other planets doesn't tell us much. I was able to find an article, again by Phil Plait, which looked at some of these indicators, like would aliens be able to detect Earth? So I'm kind of turning it on its head. Would we be able to detect an Earth-like planet with our level of technology elsewhere in our galaxy? So a few things to look at. The first is radio waves. Basically, this is what SETI is looking for. So if another planet was pointing a radio signal that we would be able to generate directly at the Earth, we could expect to detect that from 12,000 light years away. So from that method, it'd be very far.
12,000?
Yeah.
Now,
but they basically have to be pointing specifically at our star.
Perfectly.
Pointing it at us, right?
Well, wait a second. Not just our star, our planet. Or would we...
Well, I think generally towards the star would cover.
So for those who need a quick reminder, 1 light year, of course, is light. The distance light travels in a year, but it's 10 trillion kilometers approximately.
Oh, it's very far. Yeah.
And so it's 12,000 light years. It's ridiculous. I also thought, didn't you do a segment previously years ago on signal decay?
Yeah, this is basically that.
So okay, decays, but it still gets that far.
Okay, so it's the inverse cube law. Basically, the further away you are from the source of a signal, it dissipates, right? Because it expands. But if it's a directed signal, then you're pointing specifically at it, so it's not decaying in the same sense. So it's
understandable.
It's not dissipating, right?
Well, it has to dissipate somewhat, or no?
Yes,
I guess.
and that's why it's 12,000 and not infinite.
Okay,
right?
fair enough. Yeah. And I guess vacuum of space. Even though there's an abnormal vacuum, so there'd be minor friction, but not really anything.
Yeah.
All right, that's good. Listeners, write in if you happen to know more.
So this is really far. It includes billions of stars. But the question is how many of those billions of stars are specifically pointing at us? Because we would need to point to every one of those billions of stars to be able to do the same.
I guess when you send the signal, I mean, certainly when we fly to somewhere like the moon, we do the circular path for gravitational oomph, right? So we save on fuel. But a radio signal doesn't have the same concern. But it could get deflected. So when you send it, since you're moving, it's moving, all these things are moving, you really would have to game this out, so to speak, of how and where you would fire the signal to hit a direct Earth 12,000 light years away.
Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying. If I point at a specific star, I need to point at where I know the star is going to be by the time that signal gets there.
As a cosmetologist, Wayne Gretzky said, you have to skate to where the Earth is going, not where it is.
I think with modern technology we can do that math, but yeah, it's like how many of these billions of stars would actually point to our specific star of the billions in their sky to do that.
Yep.
I don't know. So the next question is a message which isn't directed anywhere but broadcast into space, but with the intention to be seen by aliens, and that distance is about 65 light years. It's not really that far, half the distance from here to K2-18b, but there are thousands of stars that are that close to us. So that doesn't need to be someone that's specifically saying, hey, this solar system here, I want to point to them.
Also, let's again appreciate that space includes 600 trillion kilometers being not that far.
Yeah. And finally, how close would we have to be to detect the radio waves like the ones that are being broadcast from Earth normally through the use of our technology and stuff like that? And that answer is very close. It would need to be less than 4 light years. There are no stars, except our sun, that are less than 4 light years from us.
Alpha Centauri like 4.1?
Proxima Centauri, 4.25. So yeah, it's out of that solar system. So it's not surprising that we don't detect those kind of radio waves. Like you're pointing SETI things in space, and we're not just seeing them having like 1930s style radio broadcasts going around the planet.
So you're saying they could be having like some great shows, like Seinfeld, Friends, Breaking Bad, from Proxima Centauri, and we're missing out. As you're telling me,
we're not getting them unless they like boost the signal specifically so that we see them.
Golden age of Proxima TV entertainment.
Mm-hmm. So what about these methods that we have to detect what's in the atmosphere around K2-18b? So if we use spectral analysis of a planet in transit to see what it's made of, we would probably want to look for evidence of, say, nitrogen oxide, a byproduct of burning fossil fuels, which is found in Earth's atmosphere. To do that, you'd need to be 5.7 light years away. There's only one solar system we'd be able to see that from. The heat produced by cities on Earth could only be seen as far as about Neptune, so you wouldn't be able to see even all of the planets within our own solar system with that. So if you had like aliens sitting on Pluto, which isn't a planet, it's a dwarf planet, whatever, they wouldn't even be able to tell if there was heat being generated by the cities on Earth from there.
But imagine you're on Neptune, the FOMO. You're like, oh, those Earth cities, man. Look at all that heat. They must be doing stuff.
Oh, and it'd be so cold out there, too. Another option is a targeted laser beam. This could be detected from about 6 light years. So, that's like from here to the closest star. Again, not great. And then there's a lot of stuff that's orbiting our planet, like man-made satellites. These could be detected during a planet's transit in front of its sun or its star. But for us, that could only be seen from Mars, which is the closest planet. So there's no way we'd be able to detect, artificial satellites created by aliens around a planet around another star.
Yet.
Not yet. No, yeah, of course. I mean, our technology may improve and their technology may improve.
5, 10, 20 years, some AI assistance.
But the other issue is, for their technology to improve, they get more efficient, not less efficient at radio broadcasting. So it may be actually harder for us to be able to detect signs of alien life, depending on what that is. Of course, like if they're building like Dyson spheres and other megastructures, maybe that becomes easier to uncover in time.
I was thinking perhaps more from our point of view, because it's feasible that our technology gets better in our lifetimes.
Sure.
But if these things are that far away, I guess light, if you're doing, I guess it depends what we're talking about, because 6 light years is 6 years, right? But if it's 1,000 light years, an extra 10 years isn't going to make much of a difference to us on their side.
I think even given current technology, you can just sort of like just have a really, really, really big telescope and you just start seeing further and further.
True.
Either a radio telescope or, whatever. So I think that's something that could improve.
You're right. Well, it's further back or further away. True. Yep. I guess I was just thinking that, imagine like they can send a stronger signal in 10 years from now.
Oh, absolutely.
It's still going to take too long to get here for our purposes. If it's 1,000 light years away. If it's 6,
but if they did it 1,000 years ago.
Oh, I know. I understand.
10,000
I understand. But that's what I'm saying. The 10 matters more seemingly on our side.
Yeah. Personally, I would think that if life was common, then a certain percentage of planets which have intelligent life should give rise to a technological civilization which fills the galaxy with something like von Neumann probes, a robotic spacecraft, which travels from one place to another and self-replicates. The fact that the galaxy and universe doesn't seem overrun with these suggests to me that we may be alone in the universe, or those people that achieve that technology have some other reason for not propagating like that. I'm still hopeful life is out there, and hopefully the coming singularity doesn't result in the Earth being the first to do this, unless we're benevolent in it. There may be life in a vast planet-sized ocean on the exoplanet we call K2-18b, but there also might not be life there. We maybe know of a substance in the atmosphere that could maybe indicate something like a life form on Earth produced it, but there are a lot of assumptions here which aren't definitively proven. The universe is vast, and the distance between stars is great. It's very difficult to detect signs of life or civilizations from great distances.
Alas, it's true. Good job, Adam. So, because I looked at that story a bit, but not as much detail. So it's now like, all right, I guess I'll wait a couple more years and see how that 99.7% thing turns out or not.
Yeah.
I do think there's a lot of complexity. And even if they were able to find some life, it's not clear what the next move is, right? I think
we can send them a signal and it'll get back to us in 220 or 240 years.
Yeah, a long time, right? Also, whether, that is sufficient data evidence to indicate that life is now in the universe, is teeming, right?
Yeah.
Like, well, I'd be wary of making that inference also, even though that'd be a good data point, right?
No, but like if we've only looked for life on a handful of planets and we find it, well, now I think it means like, okay, well, now we look a little harder to places that are closer.
Sure, agreed.
And
it's just, I guess I'm trying to say that, and then most science people think this way, it's probabilistic, right? It's not definitive. It's just that increases the likelihood, but it could be there's other factors at play, like you alluded to before, which like, oh no, that doesn't actually mean anything because life is still rare. It just pops up once in a while.
Yeah. We just got lucky that the 100th planet we checked instead of the billionth was the one that had it. Right?
Mm-hmm. Well, thanks, Adam. And thanks for joining us once again, listeners. I talked to you about the absolutely intellectual importance of whether 100 men could beat one gorilla, and we know where that went. And then Adam gave us a delightful sciencey segment about whether there actually was life detected far, far away in some galaxy.
Our galaxy.
Yeah. A long time ago. Okay. Until next
20 years ago.
Here you go. Until next time, think better to act better.
Peace out, keyboards.
For show notes or to discuss this episode, visit our Facebook page and website at trcpodcast.com. For general inquiries or to send a topic or parody suggestion, email info@trcpodcast.com. Help support the show by leaving a review on iTunes and liking us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter @TRC_podcast.
Outtakes.
Gorillas tend to live about 35 to 40 years in the wild.
Unless they're at the Cincinnati Zoo.
First, we have a motorcycle.
You motorcycle. Mark Wahlberg. Oh, I gotta look this up now. Hey, donkey. Say hi to your mom for me. He suspects it could be a gas giant with no service.
No service.
No service.
No cell
I
service.
can't even get a call from this gas giant. I want to call Earth and say there's aliens here.
I got no bars. I got no bars on K2. Sorry. Go ahead. Say that again.